Hi, thank you for having me. And I'm here today to talk to you about interracial marriage. Did you know that according to the reports by the Pew Research Center, 8.4% of interracial has increased compared to just 3.2% in 1980? Well, that's correct. I understand that interracial marriage are looked badly upon, and it's a lot of stress to the couple that are from two different races. I understand that it will cause conflict within the family and parents. I understand that all of you guys want your child to carry on the tradition, the family name. Well, honestly, you can't change the fact that your son or your daughter fell in love with someone that's a different race, that someone's a different culture. I'm here today to tell you the reasons why I believe it should be accepted. The reason why I think it should be accepted is because one, there's no legal prohibition against the law about marrying a different race. Two, it benefits oneself to incorporate the aspect of the culture of a different culture, honestly. And it's important to have kids with different race and combined racial aspects so they could be wiser and understand society. So according to NPR, an NPR staff wrote about Loving versus Virginia. Loving versus Virginia was a case back in 1967, and it's the reason why there's no legal prohibition against the law about marrying someone from a different race. Richard Loving was a white Caucasian man who married Mildred, who was African American. They lived in Virginia and wanted to marry each other, but they couldn't because Virginia didn't allow that. So they went to Washington D.C. to get married. And when they came back, they were arrested because it was illegal to marry someone from a different race. To avoid that, Richard and Mildred decided to leave Washington D.C. in exchange for their freedom to marry. They said that they will never come back if they just let them go. So they did that. Richard and Mildred lived in Washington D.C. for a few years, had kids. But then after a while, Richard and Mildred, they wanted to go back to Virginia for the families, but they couldn't. So Richard decided to take it to the court. They're saying this is unconstitutional, having two races not being able to marry each other. But then the court inside Virginia said, it is constitutional because according to the Bible, two races cannot marry each other. So Richard Loving took that to another step, saying that bringing it to the Supreme Court. And after a while, the Supreme Court ruled that all laws bearing interracial marriage are banned because they are unconstitutional. There's nothing written in the Constitution saying that two races couldn't marry each other. So I'm glad that happened. Another reason why parents that you guys should accept interracial marriage is because it benefits oneself to incorporate an aspect of the culture within someone. So Kristen, she is a writer for Star Tribune, the newspaper, and she interviewed Nancy Yang, who married a Swedish man. At first, Nancy and her husband, they couldn't. Her family was saying that you guys should not be together because that's not part of the religion. But after a while, you can't stop two kids. You can't stop your kids from doing something that you don't want. So for 10 years later, they've been married happily, and Kristen goes along and interviewing Nancy. And Nancy by then was talking to her, saying that they are thinking about having kids. And Nancy said, and I quote, "They will be our Jewish babies. Our little Jewish babies. Our little Jewish babies." Yes, it's hard for them to go through it, having a two different race baby. But then it's also good for the kids to also learn the two cultures, Swedish culture and the Hmong culture. And with that, it will make them wiser. It will make them more knowledgeable about both society, both culture, and how both tradition function. And that's a good thing for a child to be more knowledge. You don't really learn that in school. You have to learn that all by yourself. But then what's better than having your family or your mom and dad teaching you that? And I also think that interracial marriage should be accepted because it's important to have kids. It's important to have kids with different and combined racial. Kevin Beatty on the Stanford Graduate School of Business did a study on 182 students that are multicultural students. He reported that significantly they have less physiological stress compared to another student that classify themselves as just one race. And it also engages them in problems. And they also engages in problems similar or almost the same as other students that are one racial. For example, me and my boyfriend, I'm one culture. I classify myself as a shaman, a Hmong, an Asian girl. But he's a different story. He's African and he's white. His mom is white and his father is black. In pre-calculus, we both didn't really understand the letter I. We didn't know it was actually a number in pre-calculus. And we both had conflicts in that. But something we actually both understood very well was chemistry, when we had to learn how much to use in a chemical to make sure that we're not overusing, and how to measure and all of that. So for me, I just want to recap all of this. I honestly understand that interracial marriage are not accepted, and maybe it won't be accepted after you leave today. But I just want to let you know that it is beneficial, and it will help you and everybody, and even society, because everybody understands each other and will be more wiser when you judge, because they understand more culture and how it works. Some people aren't like that, but it's good to have kids or parents who are different race but understand each other. Thank you.
Jeez, why is this always 9 minutes?